What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Sick Podcast. Steelers. Crazy. We're closing in on the Steelers. Colts. Everybody excited about this, of course. Pittsburgh with a chance to go 4-0 and really take a commanding lead in the AFC North. So we'll see if they can get it done. And what's not going to be an easy game, of course, on the road against a team you lost to last year. Granted, it was Gardner Minshew and not Anthony Richardson. They haven't been playing well, but the Steelers only 1.5 point favorite as they currently sit. So we'll talk to our guest about that in just a few minutes. I want to shout out some of our awesome sponsors, starting with Homage, some fantastic gear. Listen, we're right in the middle of Steelers season, of course. When Pittsburgh isn't doing so hot, I'm not seeing as much gear out there, but 3-0, baby. Let's go. Get yourself some Steelers shirts, ultra comfy, high quality. You got to rep Pittsburgh. Rep the Pirates, rep the Penguins. Hockey season is here too. Pop culture, more legendary moments. Homage does it all. Learn more about Homage with the link in the description. And speaking about does it all, you can literally bet anything over at DraftKings Sportsbook. You can call it a tutty, a TD, in for 6. Touchdowns do matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We really don't care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering. Are you ready to make your first bet? Bet on something simple, like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. As mentioned, Steelers -1.5. Who knows? Trap game, potentially. I like to throw that lingo out there every once in a while, although I think Pittsburgh is probably going to pull this off, but a 1-point win would not shock me. So if you're ready to do a touchdown dance of your own, do us a favor. Use our code 6sports. You get 200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook. Number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the app once more. Use our code. You see it right there on the bottom if you are watching us on the tube. 6 Sports, 200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Go ahead, Shane.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
All right, we're going to talk about some Steelers. We're going to talk about some fantasy football as well. Everybody trying to dig out of some 1-2 or 0-3 holes. We can probably help you do that today with our next guest. We'll bring him in right after we run the title.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Harris Smith shields. Blackout. Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
All right, you can find this dude over at Football Guys, where he is an analyst, betting expert, fantasy expert, checks all the boxes. He's on X at Wagman95. Make sure you go and check him out. It's none other than Sam Wagman. Sam, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Thanks so much for joining us, dude. First of all, we always like to get a neutral perspective. Did you have the Steelers 3-0 with a 2-game lead in the AFC North and going into week 4 before the season?
I like to be someone who does not underestimate Mike Tomlin. Like, I feel like people have been betting against Tomlin for the better part of 2 decades at this point, and they just continue to come up wrong every single season. So, no, I didn't have you 3-0, but I can't say I'm surprised that you've grinded these wins out. And I'm a big Justin Fields fan, so no one's happier, than a lot of people in the fantasy community to see him being more careful with the ball and kind of getting things done. It kind of seems like he's playing a little bit freer, if you will, than he was in Chicago. So definitely fortuitous that Fields is out there starting for you guys, and I'm kind of happy to see the Steelers 3-0.
Were you someone who was more inclined to say the Bears kind of got in Fields' way opposed to Fields getting in the Bears' way over the past few seasons?
Yes and no. Okay, so let me rephrase it. It's yes and no, because Fields definitely had his share of issues that contributed to why the experiment didn't work. He held onto the ball way too long. He looked for plays downfield instead of just taking easy spots that were open. He just sometimes plain missed guys that were open and, spots that he should have taken. Like, I do think that he was somewhat very reliably the blame for the last 4 years. On the same page, the Chicago Bears are not the place for a young quarterback to start his career. I hope the best for Caleb Williams, but they have a very long and documented history of getting in their own way when it comes to young quarterbacks. And it's the reason why they kind of have cycled Browns-esque through quarterbacks over the last, 20 years. So I will say that it's a little bit of both. I do think the Bears, like the scheme the last few years was horrible. Matt Nagy was a horrible coach. There's definitely plenty of organizational issues. Not upgrading the offensive line, like that absolutely killed Fields. But Fields had plenty of issues that, necessitated a split between the two teams. So I don't know, 50-50, it's hard, but growth is possible. The change in scenery factor is 100% something that you can play into as a reason why we've seen kind of a rejuvenated look at Fields, even though it's only been 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's been quite risk averse, which we hadn't seen out of Justin, obviously, in the last handful of years. You mentioned it. The turnover issues would just pile up. And we'll hit on it from a fantasy perspective because I personally hate drafting Steelers. I'm going to root for them anyways. So I don't want to ever sit there and be like, damn it, we scored a touchdown, but it wasn't Najee. So I'm going to be angry. I want to be happy either way. However, I know a lot of Steelers fans like drafting their own cats. Fields has been risk averse, and that has got to kind of bring his fantasy value down, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to that. Obviously, fantasy for quarterbacks, fantasy value is heavily tied to rushing output as well. It's something we've kind of come to expect from Fields over the last, several years. The Steelers have not dialed up a ton of designed runs for him over the first several weeks of the season. I think that's something I would like to see out of Arthur Smith. Over the next few weeks as we look for ways to increase his fantasy value. But he's also had a lot of plays that, things that he just couldn't control. Like George Pickens leads the NFL in unrealized error yards right now. So, there have been plays that have been called back due to penalty. I think Fields threw the best throw of his career to Pickens in week 2 on that 40-yard pass that was called back due to penalty. It was perfect. So I think that's kind of endemic of things that we've seen this season as to why they're not really having a ton of offense. Obviously, when you have, kind of just a battering ram that you have in Najee Harris, that kind of takes away some goal line runs as well. So you can't really have like a Jaden Daniels-esque or Jalen Hurts-esque or Josh Allen-esque look at, fantasy points from that perspective. But Arthur Smith runs a good offense. Everyone hates on him because of the way the tenure in Atlanta ended. And his personnel choices suck. Which is why you're still seeing Cordarrelle Patterson more times than you probably should. But I think at the end of the day, Arthur Smith's a good play caller. He's going to put his team in good position to move the ball down the field. And I think as long as the offensive assets on the field do their job, I think you're going to have things work out for you from a fantasy perspective. So I actually am holding Fields. I think he's, a relatively solid QB2 as long as he's starting, because the rushing floor will eventually stabilize for him. And if they can get their offense, a little bit more downfield, I think things could really look up for him from a fantasy points perspective.
Sam, give our mere mortals like myself a breakdown of unrealized air yards.
So unrealized air yards are when you throw the ball downfield, but for whatever reason, a player doesn't catch them. Penalty, bad throw, by the quarterback, something else happens that causes the ball not to go in the person's hands. It's, obviously air yards is just pure how far the ball travels down the field, but unrealized are, just something out of the receiver's control that really can't be quantified by just simply saying he dropped the ball or, something like that.
You think those air yards are going to be realized against the Colts, right? You're expecting a big game from George Pickens.
Yeah, so I actually really like George Pickens. One of my favorite bets this weekend is a ladder play on George Pickens receiving yards. I took it up to 100, which you can get over on DraftKings at, I believe it was plus 650. I'm looking right now to make sure on that. Where are you? I saw, there it is. You can get over 90.5 at plus 475 right now.
Well,
70.5 at plus 210 and over 60.5 at plus 135. And I think he can definitely get there with all of them. At some point, these balls have to go where they're supposed to go. And the Colts have given up the 5th most fantasy points to outside wide receivers this season. Given the fact that they've been dealing without probably their best cornerback in Juju Brents, who's out for the season, and the fact that despite the portrayal of them as kind of a run funnel due to just the pounding that they took from the Packers on the ground a few weeks ago, they've been painted as a run funnel defense when actually they have some significant liabilities on the back end. So I do think that Pickens can get behind this defense and really get there. And honestly, at his core, Fieldster is a great deep ball. So if he gets there, I think Pickens can clear this on a few catches.
Yeah, absolutely. Steelers fans will love to hear that. We've been waiting, obviously, for that big breakout game, but as you mentioned, no fault of his own whatsoever. We see his talent on display weekly, and this dude is a freak. He's an avatar. He is just one of a kind, and we expect that fantasy value to continue to ascend. Last position I want to talk about on the Steelers is running back. You kind of alluded to Najee before. Jaylen Warren's been banged up. I mean, obviously last year the guy is this ascending fantasy superstar, and on the field too, it kind of comes out of nowhere to be this Austin Eckler type vibe, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on kind of the backfield situation as a whole? Have you elevated Najee because of the Warren injuries?
Yeah, I do think that Arthur Smith is more likely to use someone that can run between the tackles as part of his offense. We did kind of see that a lot last year in Atlanta. Tyler Algier made it onto the field a lot more than he should have. Cordell Patterson made it onto the field a lot more than he should have. These are big, burly guys. So, for me, I do think that Najee is a guy that Arthur Smith is going to prioritize, especially around the goal line, especially in short yardage situations.
Is that Arthur Smith calling you to give you the breakdown, by the way?
I would love if he did. I would give him a piece of my mind if I could. But
oh gosh.
I do think that Warren's going to have to work his way back. Like everything we've heard about Warren the past couple seasons is that he's right there. This is a 50-50 split, but it hasn't translated into production. So until I see it happen, I think that Arthur Smith is, and I think Arthur Smith is waiting for Warren to prove that as well. I think that this backfield is Najee's for the vast majority of touches, unless Warren shows that he hasn't, because Najee has gotten it done when he needs to. So I've always liked Najee as a back. He has true 3-down potential. He doesn't really run routes, but he's good enough, with the hands out of the backfield that he can make things work. And until that changes, what use is there to really use Warren as something else other than a change of pace back?
For sure. Don't sleep on Najee as potential top 10 back at the end of the year. One thing, though, that if you are sleeping will help you sleep, Shane, if you want to pull it up for me, is Mana Sleep Mask. It's the only mask designed and optimized for the deepest possible sleep in any environment. 100% blackout for deeper sleep. Infinitely adjustable for personalized fit. Absolute comfort. Visit manasleep.com. Use our code 6Steelers for 10% off. We're throwing a bunch of codes at you guys today. We want to save you money, help you sleep better, and help you make money at the same time. Beautiful stuff. Use our code 6Steelers, 10% off. We're hanging out with Sam Wagman here on the Sick Podcast. Steelers. Crazy. All right, I want to talk just the league in general a little bit. Players right now in fantasy, maybe that you're buying low on. You have a little bit of a list for us? A couple guys maybe that jump off the page?
Interesting. Yeah, let me pull some stuff up. Someone I definitely want to buy low on while I still can is Dalton Kincaid. The tight end for the Buffalo Bills. A lot of people had him kind of as their tight end 2 or tight end 3 heading into the season, and then puts up 6 fantasy points in 2 weeks. And, kind of everyone's a little off. The Bills are running a run-heavy offense kind of out of nowhere after Josh Allen was throwing the ball all over the park. And then in week 3, all of a sudden they switched to a little bit more of a pass-heavy offense against the pass funnel team of the Jaguars. I think that'll continue a little bit throughout the season. I think Dalton Kincaid is a prime target for people. I also think people should be buying George Pickens as much as possible. Obviously everything I spoke about earlier kind of holds true. The unrealized air yards, the way he's been winning downfield. He's not going to be much of a separator. He's not the quickest guy on the field, but I've always believed that Pickens is one of the best technical route runners that the NFL has right now, because just the ability he has to win at the catch point, ability to win on contested catches, ability to kind of get out behind defenders without, that separation speed, I think makes him a very special asset that, just hasn't really translated to fantasy points yet. But it's starting to get there. This is the kind of offense that really kind of fits more his speed, the ability that Fields has to kind of push the ball downfield. And, the Steelers' pace of play is a little bit better for him under Arthur Smith than I think it was previously, because I think Smith will, push pace a little bit more, and that'll allow Pickens to kind of get downfield and get open a little more. So I really like buying him. And then one last player that I definitely think you should be buying low on is Jonathan Brooks from the Carolina Panthers. He was just announced yesterday to be kind of turning that final corner to be, return to play after recovering from ACL surgery suffered in, I believe it was mid-October of last year, or actually November. So we're right around 10 months at this point, and I think that he is just about ready to come back. And once he does, this could be a Carolina Panthers offense that you really want to target for fantasy. Andy Dalton is capable of kind of just pushing the ball down the field. He's not an elite quarterback in that, he's someone you want to have when you're trailing and you need to throw the ball. But he'll get the ball, he'll get it done for you when he needs to. And I think Brooks will really benefit from that, especially around the goal line, depending on how the Panthers decide to utilize him coming off the torn ACL. But for a lot of people, he's kind of just been sitting in their IR spot and on their bench for, several months at this point. And I think people are ready to kind of move him and see what he can be worth. And, finding the right trade package could be absolutely perfect. He could be a guy that helps you win your lead down the stretch.
I've seen him on waivers personally, and that's a great call in some, in some 10-team leagues. I have seen him sitting out there. So definitely a good call there. What the heck's going on with tight ends? You throw out Kincaid. I feel like none of these guys are producing at the level they should be.
It's been weird. Mark Andrews, for one, the Ravens just don't seem interested in utilizing him as much as they need to. I think kind of what it is as well is the passing as a whole is kind of down this season. We're seeing that a little bit more than ever as teams kind of employ too high safety looks across the board, which takes away a lot of deep shots and takes away a lot of deep crossing routes, because you have help over the top from a safety in these package looks. So that affects tight ends' abilities to run deep crossers. All the best tight ends run deep crossers. Kincaid ran a bunch last year. Laporta ran a bunch last year. Obviously, Travis Kelce is the king of the deep crossers over the middle of the field, stuff like that. And we're seeing a lot of guys kind of having to make their bread and butter on short to intermediate plays instead. And those just don't bring the fantasy points the same way. So unless they're scheming looks to these players like the Las Vegas Raiders did with Brock Bowers the first few weeks, it's kind of hard. And then you have a lot of situations where George Kittle owners, for example, are really familiar with this. You're going to start him in your lineup every week, but there's just so many talented players around him that if they're not specifically scheming touches to him for whatever reason, you're kind of having to depend on a big play or a touchdown here to make your point quota for the week for your tight end. And it's not because they're bad. It's kind of just the personnel that's on the field and the way that, offenses are taking what defenses give them. So, I'm sure a lot of defensive coordinators schemed up ways to kind of take some of these overpowered tight ends out of the game. So we go in as fantasy football players into the season thinking, oh my God, the tight end position is so deep this year with all this talent and all these players that had, early career breakouts, and then not realizing that, if teams are going to take them away, The offensive teams are going to focus a little bit more on the nuance of the tight end position, have them stay a little bit more in line and block. Maybe some of them are learning the nuances of the tight end position as a whole, like Dalton Kincaid. I said this on the Football Guys Dynasty show earlier this week. I think Dalton Kincaid is kind of learning the nuances of the fantasy football position. He came into this game basically a glorified wide receiver. He wasn't expected to block that much because Dawson Knox is doing a lot of the blocking. But if teams are trying to scheme Kincaid out of the receiving game and force him to kind of play more of a actual tight end role, then you're going to see Kincaid doing a little bit more blocking. So I think the Bills are having him do a little bit more blocking, kind of learn the nuances of the tight end position and being more of a complete tight end. We got spoiled a little bit. TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, early season breakouts that were just not common 10 years ago at the tight end position. So I think that's a big part of it. I think another big part is just this is a weird injury season. I know we say that every season, but this is a weird injury season. TJ Hawkinson, injured. Trey McBride, injured. Sam Laporta, injured. Njoku, injured. Kittle, injured. Jake Ferguson was injured. Evan Ingram's injured. Like, these are just 7 of the top 12 guys I just rattled off there. I mean, Travis Kelce is just old because he's jetting around the world with Taylor Swift, and, hanging out at various random sporting events and doing a podcast. Like, these are just auxiliary things that are just not normal. So I think a lot of it is patience. The tight end leaderboard last year after 3 weeks looked completely different from what it is. So I definitely think preaching patience is something, but I also think you kind of have to be prepared that tight end might just be more of a streaming position than it ever was. And I think quarterback is starting to become that way as well. There's less elite passers than ever in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes has put up 1 game with 20-plus fantasy points in his last 10 games. So I think it's kind of just fantasy football is becoming a little bit more of a strategy game in which you kind of have to – you can't just start your studs. You kind of have to be a little bit more creative and think a little bit outside the box.
With apologies to my wife, my greatest life accomplishment so far, I think, is being 2-1 in a league that I drafted Christian McCaffrey with my first pick and Sam Laporta with my second pick.
That is
shout
impressive.
out Sam Darnold for helping my season turn around. That's something I never thought I would say in my entire freaking life. All right, let's get you out of here. Let's get you out of here on this. If you won't offend anybody, if you help people make money, they won't care what you say. Steelers -2 against the Colts. Where are you leaning?
I actually kind of like this. I think this is an interesting matchup for the Steelers because I kind of view this a little bit like the game against the Chicago Bears last week for the Steelers, or the Colts. It's a very, very good defense that they're going against. It's one that they really can't throw the ball much on because of the back end that they possess, but also running it up the gut isn't going to work. And if Anthony Richardson makes a lot of mistakes, they're going to make him pay. But unlike the Bears, I think there's a more cohesive offensive unit here in Pittsburgh. And I think because of that, you're going to see a little bit more offense come up in this game. So I actually like the over in this game. I do like over 40 in this game. And I do lean towards the Steelers in this game because I think they're just a better team than the Colts right now from a defensive standpoint. And Anthony Richardson has made so many mistakes over the first 3 weeks that how could I possibly trust him not to make a mistake against Joey Porter and TJ Watt right now? So I'm a little bit worried. I think that Joey Porter is going to be able to take away Michael Pittman. And I'm not sure the other receiving units on the Colts are going to be enough to keep them in this game. Jonathan Taylor is going to have a little bit of tough sledding against this defensive line. And I think the Colts are, a little bit of a running back, funnel. Despite what I said earlier about them they still are allowing points on the ground. So I think Najee could get in there. I do think they're going to struggle a little bit against Fields running the ball. I saw Caleb scramble a couple times last week. And I think George Pickens gets loose for a deep touchdown in this game. So I'm not there where I'm gonna lay it out as an official play either side or total. I just like the Pickens prop that I had, but I do lean towards the Steelers in this one.
I agree with everything you said, which is why that number at 2 scares the crap out of me. And
It
opening at
does.
1.5 scares the
Does.
crap out of me. Dude, you're a beast. It's been awesome. Please tell everybody where they could find you, what you got going on.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at Swagman95. I do a weekly player prop bets article over at Football Guys. You can find that at footballguys.com. It is free. It is ahead of the paywall. And then I do a lot of betting analyst content over at Rhythm as well. I write an article for every single Island game that previews and takes a look, and it goes into our statistical modeling process over there as well. So I write about 4 or 5 articles a week. You guys can find that all over on my Twitter page and on the company pages as well.
By the way, Swagman, the fact that you're able to put that together with your name is so badass. I'm sure there are folks out there that are like, just how braggadocious this guy, Swagman.
Yeah,
and
it came together in high school.
Awesome.
It's your name. Never left.
It's your name. Yeah. There are people out there who are like Swagman, 657, and they're like, all right, dude, it's literally that's the coolest thing in the world.
This has been my Twitter handle since I started on Twitter in 2011 when I was 16 years old. So it has never been changed. I don't think it'll ever be changed. I kind of have grown to enjoy it. One of my close friends in this industry has always told me, focus on branding. It'll get you very far in a creator-led industry. So that's what I've done to some extent, and I've come to enjoy it.
Shout out to your parents there. I mean, that's dope, dude. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure, man. Maybe we'll do it again sometime. Really appreciate you taking a lot of time for us today, and we're excited to keep up with your work. All right.
Absolutely appreciate it, Mike.
You got it, man. See ya.
All
right, guys. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hopefully, like I said, if your fantasy team is 0-3 or 1-2, that you got a lot from this. I think Sam and I are both on the Steelers this weekend, which is frightening. I hate these trap game spreads. I know that the home team gets 3 points, for just being home, but I don't think many people are looking at that spread and saying, yeah, Colts +2, love that, easy. I think it's flipped the other way around, and that's generally what Vegas wants you to do. So we'll see. Take everything with a grain of salt, per usual. Want to thank our tremendous sponsors. You got DraftKings. We also have Man of Sleep and Homage. Make sure you check all those out. And I want to encourage everybody to subscribe. Our Tuesday shows, players only. We love ripping those. We've had Deshaun Elliott and Christian Kuntz, and we're going to have those guys on a handful more times. Talk about some perfect personalities to have on the show. Elliott is so much freaking fun, and Kuntz represents all that is Pittsburgh. So thank you guys for sticking with us. Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and we'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.